Alrighty, we're recording. Just so we know that this is real. The notebook's talking. Alright, Mykia. So I'm going to interview for this class. Is that cool?
That's fine.
Awesome. So right now we're working on groups and like the psychology behind groups. And so I wanted to talk to you about the two different types of groups. Do you know what like the two different types of groups are? Or
No.
Okay, so you have common bond groups, and those are like the groups that you would meet like face to face. So like this would be more of a common bond group. What keeps you together is like you meeting on a regular basis. So like your church congregations, you meet them face to face, so that might be considered a common bond group. But then you also have like common identity groups, which are linked by certain categories, but they lack the face-to-face interaction. So that would be like your group in the African American culture. You belong to that group in that culture, but that's not to say you interact with every single person of that culture every single day. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, is having the common bond or is having the common identity more important in terms of cohesiveness as a group?
I'm going to go with common bond.
Why do you think that?
Just because...
There's no right or wrong answer, by the way.
I agree. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like a person... Like, sure, I'm connected to, like, the African American group, but I feel like my friends or, like, the people I meet with face-to-face have more of a connection to me. And it's more important to me whether or not we have, like, an emotional connection rather than one that's just tied to a genetic reason or... You know, it's just more important to me whether or not we have, like, a relationship, an actual one that where we interact, rather than just one that's based on just, like, one common factor.
Yeah. So how does that change in our increasingly virtual environment? So, like, you're saying that the common bond of seeing people face-to-face all the time is more important, but what happens in a virtual environment where you may never meet these people face-to-face, yet because of your bond over maybe your ethnicity or maybe the game that you're playing specifically or your style of gameplay or the culture of gaming that you're in, you're more likely to identify with those groups rather than the people you see like day to day. So how would you explain that in that environment?
I don't know if I'm more likely to identify with them. I think having, like, that one common thing is important, but I don't feel like that is the most important. Like, you can meet people in a virtual environment and decide that, like, oh, we can become friends, and then you bond on, like, a different level, and then eventually, like, most people are like, hey, can we meet? Because having that interaction face-to-face is valuable, especially when you consider somebody a friend or to have a decent relationship with someone. Like, I have a friend, my best friend lives in New Orleans. I don't get to see him every day, but I do talk to him often. And if I could go see him, I would. Yeah, so, like, people that you can meet online can become your friends, like, your best ones, but I think that having interaction face-to-face is important in maintaining relationships.
Yeah. So, like, how would you say that the social norms might differ in those two groups? You know, because if one, you never see each other, is it maybe easier to maintain, like, the illusion of social norms? Just because if I never see you, I can just tell you that I'm following social norms versus, like, actually participating in social norms.
Okay, give me an example.
Okay, so let's say your social norm with your friends might be to... I'm trying to think of a good example to use both on the virtual and the non-virtual, since that's what we were comparing. Like code switching. So, like, using different vernacular with different groups. It's something that we all do. It's like our server voice versus our normal speak, or like the speak that we use with that. So let's take that as an example. So if it's your social norm to speak a certain way when you're face-to-face with your particular group, you have to speak that certain way because that's the norm, and it's going to be quite obvious if you don't. But that might be less obvious if you lack that face-to-face interaction, and let's say that bond's built on something a little bit more shallow. How would that differ?
Well, I feel like when you meet people on the virtual environments, you meet through like the commonality of whatever you were on.
Mm-hmm.
So like most virtual environments have, I don't want to say like an already set tone of how you should interact with someone,
Mm-hmm.
but just say like a gamer environment, like that's what you're studying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people would probably use more like metaphors that have something to do with gaming, or more likely to bring up those types of like interactions, or and just those types of things around those people.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't really need to know what you should say, because the virtual environment that you already on dictates how you should talk
Basically
to them.
takes care of that for you all.
Yeah.
Right? No, that makes sense. I agree. Would you say it's easier to solve like conflicts in one group over the other?
Easier to solve conflicts.
Like either between group members or between out group members too. We can look at it from both ways.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with your in group. It's easier to solve conflict because personally, I feel like those relationships are more valuable. People I meet online, I can meet them every day. They can like there are tons
You
of
have
people.
no incentive to work on the relationship because you can just find another
right.
one.
But I feel like, especially like we were talking about recently, like it's harder to find real friends. Like so I feel like once I have those relationships,
I hate like 95% of the
right, they're more valuable to
Yeah.
me. So I'm willing to work on those relationships more than the ones that I meet on random people online. Like maybe once I've like grown those relationships with those people, then I'd be more incentivized. But I feel like the people that you know personally are the people who I'd be more willing to.
Well, then would it be more easier, which would be more easier then, to solve conflicts within group or with out groups in that situation? So we're still talking about the common bond groups. Those are the people you see every day. We can talk about friends group. But is it easier for you guys to solve conflicts internally or externally? So like amongst yourselves. So let's say you have conflicts with a different group. Like we can talk about like the cliques at work. Right. Would it be easier to solve these conflicts being in a common bond group where we see each other every day and to work together to solve it with those other groups? Or would it be easier to solve these conflicts with the out groups over the virtual world? Because like I think, in my opinion, if we're a clan in like whatever game that we're playing, if we're a clan and there's another clan and we have a conflict with them but we don't necessarily want it to end bad, I think solving it through that virtual environment or using our common identity groups so that like we don't see everybody, it might be a little bit easier to solve that conflict with the out group because we don't have to see them. So it's a little bit easier to be like, yeah, I'm sorry, dude, versus like you going up to somebody at work that like a different clique at work and having to be like, yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like that would hurt your pride more. So like if you're having issues with other groups, it might be a little easier to solve those online.
Again, I agree with what you said, but I feel like it has a lot to do with the stakes. Like you don't have a lot to lose by apologizing to someone online or admitting your fault online.
Like your pride's protected.
And there's like no one you can tell that I ever admitted that I was wrong, or like I don't have to see you every day at work and be like, oh, I did something wrong to you, and then I had to suck it up and apologize to you. So
because everything that you do almost is like, if you believe Freud anyways, is an attempt to protect your ego. So anytime a virtual thing is involved, your ego is automatically more protected, and there's a bunch of different theories that back that up. So I think in terms of, it just depends. Like if you're the one who has to swallow your pride, I definitely think it'll be easier to do that. Yeah. If you're in one of those common identity groups.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with anonymity as well online. Like just like how it works so that people feel more comfortable saying any crazy thing that they want online. It works with the inverse. You're more comfortable admitting where you're also wrong rather than just putting out wrongs because, again, like you said, the pride thing.
Yeah. And then I guess my last question is going to be on the topic of brainstorming. So, because we're planning all kinds of business stuff and I bounce all of my thesis stuff off of you all the time. Would you say that it's easier to brainstorm in a common bond group versus a common identity group?
Okay. It depends on what the topic of the brainstorming is, because I feel like for the common bond groups, if we're just taking the gamer leagues as examples, when you're going online, if you're trying to brainstorm the best way to overthrow someone or to in the game, yeah, like it depends on the knowledge that the group has prior. So like I would talk to you guys, like if I ever needed anything business wise or psychology wise, I would definitely go to you guys because you guys have that prior knowledge. But if the topic of my brainstorming was something strategy wise or something that specifically related to the environment where I had met or talked to someone, I think it would be easier to brainstorm with them. I just think it depends on like
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like for me anyways, I don't find value in brainstorming off of like in groups where like I don't see the person on a regular basis. Just because for me, like if I don't see you, if I don't see you on a regular basis, your opinion automatically means less to me. And it's not like a conscious thought. It's just like when I am making like decisions or something like that, if it's like wow, I really want this pizza, and I just heard you talking about pizza earlier that day, I'm more likely to go out and get the pizza. I mean, I've been primed for that effect. But like, if also that day I saw Dr. Oz on the TV and he said, don't eat pizza, I'm going to ignore that because like he's not a part of that common bond group.
But I also feel like when brainstorming within your common bond group, like normally, like a lot of us think the same. I'm not going to say we don't have similarities, but it's valuable to get that outside look from a person that you've met on a different community or just having a different way of looking at it. Like, I think it's very beneficial for us since we all have very different majors to be able to brainstorm all together because we always bring in a different perspective. But I feel like a lot of the time your friend group is probably people who think similar to what you do.
Well, and there's psychology behind that too. And the only problem with that is you think that as a group you would collectively value outside and different opinions because overall it might make your group stronger. But if those opinions are negative in any sort of way or counteract any of your group norms, you are more likely to react in a more negative manner if it comes from outside your group versus if someone inside your group speaks up and has something different to say. You know, the problem with that is speaking up, it goes against the grain. It breaks up some of the cohesiveness. So like if we're talking about our video game cafe idea and you know we're discussing that and Dylan says, well, I think that you guys are wrong. I think that the PC gamers will split about 50-50 with the console gamers, but we don't think the same thing. You know, we might pay a little bit more attention to it because he's in our in-group, but at the same time, him saying that breaks up the cohesive flow that we had where we're all thinking the same thing. So it definitely makes the brainstorming process a little bit more socially risky because, you know, we all get pretty heated, but especially like you and Dylan get really heated about certain things. So you risk a little bit more in terms of your social relationships and your bonds that you guys built. But at the same time, I think why it works so well in our friend group is those have kind of become your roles. Like you both are like the debaters and you get really heated, but that's a part of your roles as the debaters. Is like that's what I've come to expect from you guys. If you guys aren't like heatedly debating a topic, I'm like, what's wrong?
Yeah, but you know like how businesses always conduct like focus groups to get the outside perspective. Like I feel like it depends on what topic you're brainstorming. If it's just like something random that we're just debating, sure, but if it's like a video game cafe, something that you're very seriously considering, I think that that you'd be likely to listen to outside voices because you know that it's going to benefit you in the long run. Like I value your guys' opinion because like you at the end of the day are the people who I'm going to be going into business with, but the outside opinion are the consumers who the people who are going to make sure we make our profit.
And if they're giving you a valuable thing, that's fine. But the moment that they say something that you feel negatively attacks your group as a whole, so like it would be like if we did a focus group and like the episode of Parks and Rec where they're doing the focus group for Leslie and the one guy's like, well, she's just a bitch. Like, you know what I mean? So if somebody were to say something negative about our specific group or something that didn't really even apply to what we were thinking, we would then possibly be more turned off to what that group in general had to say based on that one relatively personal attack.
Right.
So, like, if we did the group and one of the people in the group said, I think this whole idea is dumb. Like, why are you even doing this? Even if he had other smart things to say about the business model, if he thought it would work, we're still more likely to write him off because of his initial comment of, I think the whole idea is stupid.
Right.
Just because it was an attack on our personal group.
Yeah.
All right. This was a fairly fruitful conversation.
Okay.
I appreciate you and your thoughts.
No problem.
So, can I show your face in the video right now? Just so they see it so I don't have to take a picture?
Fine.
Yay! That's Mykia.
Hi.
All right. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.